Hello, and welcome to my podcast. This is your boy, Carl E. Long, coming to you from Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. Again, the E stands for Edward, coming from Dallas, Texas, in the 214, and welcome to my podcast. Boy, it has been a week of so many different things. I'm telling you, this Trump administration, guys, is taking us very fast. And we are yet trying to stay up to date and stay with everything that's going on. So hopefully you are finding some things in this podcast. I'm getting a lot of good comments from you on the podcast, and I appreciate some of the love and I appreciate some of the hate as well and the conversation that's coming out of it. That's been really, really cool as well. So thank you so much. As this podcast grows, I hope it grows to tremendous heights so that my voice is a voice for the people and that people will start to listen and learn for themselves about what goes on in our beautiful country of the United States of America. So today's podcast, my friends, it's going to be a different title. This title is, I have been like this week, there's been a lot of beating up on the Democrats, and I don't like it. I don't like it. No, I don't like it. I don't think it's all fair. I think they do need some work and everything, but I think that a lot of it is unwarranted. And Democrats, you cannot let this make you lose focus. Yes, do not lose focus. So the name of the podcast today, guys, is Messaging. Are Democrats missing the mark, or are they on track? Are Democrats missing the mark, or are they on track with keeping up with what is going on in this Trump administration? You know, I thought that after we had Trump those 4 years that he would never come back. I just knew that it was all over, but here we are again, guys, and we're in the same mode that we were back in 2016, 17, where we wake up every morning and there is something new and crazy and scary coming from the Trump administration. Just think of some of the stuff that he said, y'all. Just think about some of the stuff he said back. The Muslim ban, y'all remember that? The injecting bleach into for COVID. You know, do you remember he got COVID? Y'all need to go back and remember some things. And all around that, we had George Floyd happening. There was a lot going on during Trump's first administration, and it was not pretty. And we got him back again. Thanks to some of you lovely people. Thanks to some of you. This is what we got. But after my last podcast, if you haven't heard it, I need y'all to listen to that podcast about the election integrity that I did. Did we miss a chance to challenge this election? Because we've got some experts out there who tried their best to get Kamala Harris and her campaign to look into what was going on in the swing states. There was a pattern of voting, guys, that didn't make sense. It showed that the swing states alone, I mean, how does Michigan know what Wisconsin is doing and what Georgia's doing? They all voted the same way, where there was a lot of drop-off voting. You know what that means? Drop-off voting was they voted for just the president alone. That's strange. Or they voted all Democrat and they voted for the president Trump. That's really strange. Even though we do know there are some people that actually did that. There is. But the mass amount of it was crazy. And it was almost always the same percentage, about 60% in each state. They were giving Trump votes that kind of way. And it was all during, and get this, guys, it was all during early voting. It didn't happen in the main election. It didn't happen in any other state, red or blue, just in the swing state. Now, don't you think that's kind of crazy? Something is wrong. And we think that it was the Russian operatives that did this. But who told them to do it? That's my question. I'm going to leave it right there with that. That's not our subject today, but go back and listen to that podcast. In that podcast, you get the actual study that the guy's doing. He's still out there talking about it and why it's so important, because we have midterms elections coming up. We don't need Russian involvement in our elections for the midterms. And if Trump wants to get his agenda done, he's going really fast because he thinks he might lose it in the midterms, which is normally the case for any president. That kind of happens. So, but they might try it again. I don't know who they are because I'm not going to make any conspiracy theories because I'm not a Trump supporter. And we believe in the plurality of the election and everything. And we say that they're safe, but everybody's making it sound like now they're not so safe, guys. Even Elon Musk has said that you can really mess with one of those machines very easily. So why we think we safe, I don't know. But anyway, here we go. So let's talk about what's happening this week. A lot of stuff is happening. And mainly there's a little blowback from when Trump did his address to Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives. And there was a lot of blowback from that. So people are still talking about it. So I still got some people I want you to hear. Let's listen to what Van Jones said. He makes a very good point on what he said. I'm going to get my headphones here because I can hear better through these headphones. So we're going to see how this works out. So this is some stuff I want you to hear. And I want you to make your own determination as to what is happening in our country, guys. So let's listen to Van Jones. Here we go.
Still trying to make sense of what I saw. Trump is the master showman. If you just want to see a good show, I thought he used his time well, all 2 hours of it, like Lord of the Rings. And God bless him.
It's like Wicked, man. It's long.
It's long. But the problem is, like Wicked, it's like a fantasy, and then you come back home and you got to deal with reality. In the speech, he loves the military. In reality, he's cutting VA and throwing veterans out of work. In the speech, he loves cops. In reality, he's pardoning everybody from January 6th who beat the hell out of cops. In the speech, he holds up this cancer kid who everybody fell in love with. In reality, he's cutting cancer research. In the speech, he talks about a strong economy. In reality, it's terrorists and the stock market's in free fall. In the speech, he's got MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, and my good buddy Bobby Kennedy Jr. But in reality, there's measles ripping through Texas. There's more measles cases in Texas than there are transgender athletes in the country. So there's a speech, which is fantastic, fantasy, and then there's a reality that's getting worse and worse, and Democrats have to figure out some way to close the gap in public perception on it.
Okay, you just said something there.
But
more measles cases in Texas than transgender athletes in the entire country. And yet he went back to the transgender issue again and again and again.
I mean, it clearly resonates, right? It resonates across parties, across lots of lines, right? I mean, it just, in fact, it sells. I mean, I spent a great deal of time with women who campaigned for Title IX their whole lives, right? And they made their lives on Title IX and getting women to where they were, and they feel like just
equal
patently,
funding for women.
Yeah, it's patently unfair what's been going on. So it's not just a Republican issue. Listen, I think what the president did masterfully here is use the gallery to tell the story, to weave the narrative about what they've accomplished and what they're looking to accomplish, right? By going up to the gallery and pulling people out and weaving their stories into the overall narrative. I think he did it probably better than anyone I've seen it do it in recent time. They had a lot of people up there, but I think they were all very useful in telling the story. And some of it was on the transgender, the woman who got, concussion, a head injury from getting the volleyball spiked in her head, to the woman whose daughter was raped and murdered by the gang members who are now classified as terrorists, to just you name an issue that he'd go up to the crowd and pull somebody down. And so he brought it in and made it very personable.
All right, so that was the panel discussion on the speech. Van made some very good points on things that Trump said. I mean, everybody was upset because the Democrats didn't stand up when they presented the little kid that had brain cancer. He was a cute little kid, but you couldn't celebrate it because they were using the kid. I mean, it was like exploiting the kid. Here you are cutting all the research that helps cancer in kids and everything else, but then you're going to bring a little kid here just to pull on some heartstrings and just to make the Democrats look stupid, And so they didn't stand up. A lot of them talked about him on their own platforms and things of that nature, but they didn't stand up because they were trying to do something with solidarity on as the Democratic Party. They wanted to show this is not a normal president and we're not going to applaud nothing. And they didn't. Nothing at all. And I really applaud them for holding their guns. No disrespect to the little kid, but he was a token. I mean, he was being exploited. And then I saw another piece of video where they brought him into Trump's the Oval Office, and he had on a Secret Service outfit and the whole bit. You know, it's all fun and kids, and I love that. But God, they're just exploiting like they do. They do that a lot to us black people. I'm sorry, they just do. So that was Van Jones. So another thing that I didn't like about the speech, one of my comments, I'm gonna spend a whole day just going through the comments that I've gotten since I started this podcast. I pulled out a few, and I've just been telling you, I call them mean comments. Like stole it from like Jimmy Kimmel does some mean tweets. Mine are called mean comments that I get from the podcast. And I'm gonna spend a day. But one guy said, he goes, "What is it that you hate so much about Trump? What has he ever done to you?" And then I told him very nicely, I was like, because he lies. Why should you trust anybody that lies incessantly like Donald Trump? And it just seems to like go over their head. They don't care. He stood there in that speech and made up lie after lie after lie. And I mean, and we have fact checkers after each of his speeches, and he lies. And one of them was when he was giving all the figures about all of these people on Social Security at 300 years old. Those are lies. Social Security has something already in place to automatically stop paying people at a certain age. Nobody's getting checks, all right? And then a lot of times, those people are still in the database because Social Security don't know when people die. There has to be death certificates on file, and a lot of times death certificates aren't reported. But that doesn't mean they're still getting paid either. That doesn't mean they're getting paid as either. So there are some fail safes in the system. So those were lies. All of those were lies. And even Elon Musk, those were lies. And why y'all tell the people lies? Why do y'all do that? I don't understand. And MAGA, why do you accept that? Why do you accept lies? Like transgender mice. I think if you haven't heard it before, there's no such thing as a transgender mice. It's transgenic. It's a study where they are actually injecting mice with human cells so that they may inject them with all kinds of diseases. Sorry, poor mice, but that's what you're being used for. To help save human lives. Transgenic. Now, this is how stupid this administration, I don't know who your speechwriter is, Mr. Trump. Did you write it yourself? He did no research, but listen to this. So here's some details about transgender mice. And it's going to start off with, this is how stuff gets spread. Here's a TikToker who is like out there on her page. She has quite a few followers. I don't know what her name is or whatever, but she started this thing, and then it's going to get to her base. And next thing you know, MAGA, you're spreading disinformation just like you did the condoms going to Gaza. Y'all just don't know how to research anything. Find the truth. Find the truth. And then make a weighted decision. If you agree with the truth, then you just agree with the truth. And own up to it. If the truth doesn't bother you, then the truth doesn't bother you. Own up to it. But don't sit here and pass lies around that are not true. Transgender mice, here we go.
8 million to make mice transgender. Is this real life?
And you were allowed to vote. Is this real life? Now, this woman's talking about something in particular about transgender mice, but where did she get that from?
$8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
All right, so this was another one of those if Trump said it, it has to be true moments. But Trump actually misspoke here big time. Because what Trump should have said is scientists were making mice transgenic, not transgender. And as you can see here, transgenic mouse technology has revolutionized virtually all fields of biology and provided new genetic approaches to model many human diseases in a whole animal context. So as you can see here in the transgenic mouse model, scientists add human cells cells to mice so that when they introduce diseases and study them, these mice and their tissue react more like human tissue. And that's how we end up at a University of Cincinnati website where they're talking about their $8 million study to continue gene-environment interaction research. So yeah, Dunny, instead of stopping research where you say it was transgender mice, you actually stopped research that might help us figure out how diseases affect the human body. And you, Danielle, you bought the whole thing hook, line, and sinker just because it came out of Trump's mouth. Shame on you.
See, there you go. That's how all this misinformation gets out, guys. That's why I say if you are a content creator and you're doing anything historic, political, check your sources. Don't just pass along stuff without doing it. I just don't forward anything without researching it for myself. I want to be responsible about whatever comes on my page, on my YouTube page, my TikTok page, wherever. If I'm going to be passing on information, it's going to be realistic. I'm not going to pass along stuff that could be harmful to some people in the future. And that right there is harmful because he's getting rid of the department. A lot of the scientists that do this stuff because they don't know how dumb they are to even, they're doing stuff so quickly and not finding out what is actually going on. And this is what the problem is. Slow your roll. If you want to cut some stuff, go into the departments, find out what people are doing. You can find some waste. I don't know about fraud and all that other stuff. You can find some waste. You can find some savings if you do it the right way. That's all we're asking for, American people. There's not an American here who wants to have their taxes lowered. And then the question is, when y'all find all this money, are we getting anything back? What are you going to do with it? Are the American people going to benefit for any of these cuts? That's my question. All right. So still on back to the speech. And then there was the censure of Congressman Al Green out of Texas, Houston, Texas area. And he's been in Congress for a few years. And he's a very good friend of John Lewis's. And he's a very calm man, a very good man. And he basically was just yelling, you don't have a mandate on Medicaid. He was not calling them names or doing anything like that. He was actually leaving anyway. He was getting ready to leave, and he was yelling at him, you don't have a mandate on Medicaid. You're killing life. He was making those points. And they decided to censor him. And they're also thinking about taking anybody that was with him or came down to sing the We Shall Overcome after he was censored off of the committees. That is wrong. And I'm really mad at the Democrats because you know what? Y'all should have all stood up with him and walked out. Yes. So, and then shame on these Democrats who voted to censure along with the Republicans. Yes, there were, 10 Democrats who voted. And their pictures are right there for those of you who can't see them. I'm going to call out their names. Amy Berra of California, Ed Case of Hawaii, Jim Costa of California, Laura Gillen of New York, Jim Hines of Connecticut, Chrissy Houlihan from Pennsylvania, Marcy Kaptur from Ohio, Jared Marquez from Florida, and Perez Gulenkamp, I think that's Maine, I can't read my thing here, and Tom Zuosa from New York. Shame on you. Shame on all of you. Because you know what? If this had been reverse Republican, they all would have stood together. You 10 embarrass me. Every single one of you embarrassed me for doing that. You could have stood with your colleagues. The Republicans stand together no matter what when it comes to stuff like this. But no, you 10, you had to break rank. And I'm sorry, it's going to hurt you when you go back to your districts. It's not going to be nice because people are going to remember this. And your pictures are posted all over the internet are the ones that didn't stand. And remember, black voters are very powerful in the Democratic Party. So you better be glad and hope that this doesn't make you lose your districts. And if you're up for re-election, I don't know what's going to happen. So there you go on those. So I wanted y'all to listen to Al Green. He was on the Breakfast Club. He's a very smart man, and he has the most calming voice. And he really cares deeply for people. He really does care deeply for people. And I just think he got a bad rap on this, considering nothing was done to Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene for yelling at Joe Biden. Nothing. Here we go. This is
Greene after he interrupted President Donald Trump's address to a joint session of Congress Tuesday night. 10 Democrats voted for it. No Republicans voted against it. Censure is in response to the Texas lawmaker standing up and shouting during the opening minutes of Trump's speech. Shortly after Greene was removed, the representative told reporters it was worth it to make his point, even if he was punished for it. Joining us now to talk about the censure is the congressman himself. Congressman Greene, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we know that you've been a vocal critic of President Trump, and your protest during his address led to this censure, one of the most serious ways that Congress can reprimand a lawmaker. Can you walk us through your decision in that moment and why you felt the need to interrupt the address?
In that moment, I was about to make my departure. The president spoke of having a mandate. I turned, it was spontaneous, and I said to the president, "You don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. This is really about Medicaid. I have a good many constituents in my district who need Medicaid. It is something that is helping people across the length and breadth of our country." I spoke multiple times. I was asked to cease. Then the speaker insisted that I be removed, and I was. But the truth is this: Medicaid means a lot to me and the people that I represent. I did it. I would do it again if given the opportunity under these circumstances, because there's a possibility that it is going to be deeply cut. If it happens, people will die, many will suffer.
Representative Greene, some critics say your actions disrespected the formal setting of a presidential address and only contributes to the growing division in Congress. How do you respond to that criticism?
I respond by reminding my friends, whomever they may be, that I did this out of conscience. But also I would remind them that the president, during the same session, looked over at Democrats and called them lunatics. The president, during the same session, called a member of Congress a name that is considered a slur, a pejorative. The president won't be censured. He won't be penalized in any way. In fact, it is almost not a part of the news now that he did this. Well, I believe that my incivility was in response to the president's actions, and the president uses his incivility to demean. I used my incivility to help people, especially those who need Medicaid.
And Congressman, we know that dozens of your Democratic colleagues stood with you in solidarity today. What was it like to feel that support? And also, we know the House Freedom Caucus says its members plan to roll out another resolution seeking to remove you from the House Financial Services Committee. Does that concern you?
Of course it concerns me. And yes, my colleagues stood with me. My heart was warmed by what they did. We were singing "We Shall Overcome," an act of incivility. But it was done in response to the incivility that the president is perpetrating and perpetuating. I don't think that what I have done would merit removal. But if they should do this, I will still stand and I will still fight for the people of the 9th Congressional District. I'm going to fight for Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. These are the social safety nets that are not just there because there's a safety net program. They're there to help people who are in dire need of them. We have to protect them.
Congressman Al Green, representing the 9th District of Texas, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
all right. So there you go. That was Congressman Al Green, a very honorable person. And I'm so glad now he's been on a lot of the news talk shows and networks talking, and he's getting his message out there. And it came out to be a positive, all things work for the good. So he said he was going to do that. It just happened for him. He was leaving. He said he was actually leaving. A lot of them were walking out. So he was leaving. And then Trump started the lies about some of the stuff that he did. And he just couldn't take it. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Democrats need to be bolder like that. Much bolder as well. So that was that. So now here's Congressman Green all of that is kind of rolling over into other parts of Congress where it's getting kind of hot and heavy because they're mad. Democrats are getting very upset and they're lashing out. And what it's coming across is that there is no cohesion, or there's no effort to do things in unified ways. But I'm going to say this. We have a very large tent. You can look at the Republican Party. They are pretty solid on what they follow. And it's always the same thing. It's not big. It's usually about money, putting money back in my pocket, keeping these people away from me. I mean, theirs is very solid, and they don't have a lot of views, and they don't have a lot of diversity. So they have a solid message. Democrats, we have a much bigger message. We tend to care about people a lot more. We care about the victims a lot more. They don't care about that. So a lot of people would handle things in different ways. So you have to assert the difference. So I wanted to let you listen to Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley first on how her exchange in one of her committee meetings and how he was not letting her, they can put things on the record. Whenever they talk in a meeting, they want things to be put on the record. That means it becomes a factual record of that meeting. And if one were to look up any source of meetings or bills or whatever, you will have all of these additives that you can look at that were put on at the record. So it would say, Congressman Ayanna Pressley added, it'll be in the official record. So for some reason, the leader of this committee just didn't want to add anything. He asked her, what does this one say? That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. So she just pressed on, and it got kind of heated. Here we go.
So look, obviously this is a hearing over so-called sanctuary cities. A lot of the tension that we've seen to this point has come between the 4 Democratic mayors that we have seen and some of the Republican members of Congress who, of course, make up this committee. But this moment in particular came between a Republican member of Congress, Chair Jim Comer, and Democratic member of Congress, Ayanna Pressley, as she tried to enter into the record an article noting the crime rates of immigrants versus those of citizens, and this is what happened.
Mr. Chair, can I have several articles. I need to enter them. Let me just go ahead with what the articles are.
What's the next article?
Let me proceed. Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born Americans commit more rape and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you all trying to get thrown out of committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end. We're not going to put up with it.
This is unprocedural right of this committee.
You can go with Mr. Frost and Mr. Green. That's what you want. No. Ms. Presley, I have been very accommodating to you. Mr. Cipriano, strike the clock.
As a survivor of sexual violence, I will enter into the record. This is my right. Thank you.
No.
So I will say, overall, the hearing has never gotten to that level, but obviously one of the more intense interactions we've seen over the course of this. I should mention, too, yes, this is a hearing about so-called sanctuary cities. There's not really a single definition of it, but it's essentially jurisdictions that don't always cooperate with federal immigration actions depending on the situation. And in large part, what we've heard from these mayors is, while there are some instances of migrants committing crimes, some of them violent, some of them after having been held in local police custody, these mayors have argued that overall their cities have been safer as a result of these policies, of their current policies, citing drops in murder over the past few years, which of course corresponds with their respective influxes of migrants as well. Those are some of the numbers that we've heard cited by these mayors. But again, they also made a point to emphasize that while they don't necessarily comply with every ICE detainer request, for example, they do comply with ICE warrants, and they have been very clear about citing the differences between those two situations.
Okay, so this whole discussion was based on sanctuary cities, and he basically didn't want any statistics of any sort to show that migrants are not doing crime. as much as the ICE people are trying to allude to. And she wanted to enter into some articles to show that crime is very much down. And it's definitely not migrants. It's more Americans of the crimes that are there. They didn't want to hear it. All they want is they want to stop sanctuary cities at all costs. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear any truth. Do y'all get that? They're trying to censor everything that the Democrats are doing because they have a little power. And I say little, it's a little. They just lost a seat. This is the last one of the special elections, so they're down. But we kind of lost one too when Sylvester from Houston, I can't think of his last name, the congressman that passed away suddenly. And so I don't know how that's going to work out for the Democrats. But there are 3 seats that are out there for special elections that they could pick up. It's only like a slim majority. It's like 3 seats different. Maybe it's 2 now, I think. So they don't have a mandate, as they keep saying. They have a little bit more room on the Senate side. It's like 47 to 53 because we lost some significant seats there because of Joe Manchin. We knew we were going to lose that, and we knew we were going to lose what was the other seat? Joe Manchin's seat, and the one there's another one that was significant that we lost as well. So there you go. Now, here's another one, and this one is just great. This is my favorite show, Abby Phillip Newsnight, and I just found out she has a Saturday roundtable show. Y'all need to check that one out. This is where they bring people from both sides, and they talk about stuff. And this is a congresswoman from Washington State, I believe. I can't remember her name. I didn't get it. I should have written it down. But she was on there, and she had an interaction with Scott Jennings. And I want to show you the power of a black woman and her finger. She raises her finger, and for those of you who can't see, you'll hear. I'll let you know what she did. She raises her finger to silence Scott Jennings. You know, my favorite pundit on. He's probably the highest paid pundit on CNN because he's like the only. Well, they have several conservative pundits, probably about 4 or 5 that I know for sure that are hired regulars. But he's one of the ones, and they love to put him on. They love to put Scott Jennings on. But she silenced his butt with a finger. That's the power of the 92%. Here we go. Listen to this congressman talk about what Trump is doing and Elon Musk is doing, and how Scott tries to chime in and she silenced his butt. Here we go.
President Trump promised to lower the cost of living. He has done none of that. And the Trump administration and Elon Musk are demonstrating one thing with all these random cuts. They don't care if you get sick. They don't care if you get injured. They don't care if you can't pay your bills. And they don't care if you're safe. All these random cuts they're making in all these departments that they don't even hardly know very well are hurting the American people. How is putting veterans out of work lowering the cost of living? How is taking away food from children lowering the cost of living? How is kicking women off of health care who get Medicaid lowering the cost of living? So I know that these things are distractions that we're talking about, but why won't Donald Trump deliver on his promises? Because he lies, that's why.
Boo, y'all. He lies. That's right. He lies all the time. Whew, I don't understand, MAGA. Y'all just amaze me sometimes. So here's a question that's out there. Who is the leader of the Democratic Party? Obviously, they don't think it's Hakeem Jeffries, or they don't think it is Chuck Schumer from the Senate. They don't think we have a clear leader. I mean, we've got some people out there that are doing, like I said, we are a big tent. We are a big tent. And some people said it should be Barack Obama because we got President Trump that's leading. No, President Trump is the leader because everybody else is scared to lead. They're scared. They are scared. All of them are afraid. But Anna Navarro from The View said something that was quite poignant when she said that we don't need a leader of the Republican or Democratic Party. The leader is the American people, and they are starting to mobilize. So, guys, some of these marches are getting to be huge, huge. And you know what? They're going to get even bigger because right now, black people are not in these marches. We're not in it. A lot of minorities are not in these marches because we're still kind of burnt from it all. But this is like, I told you that God gave me an epiphany when I was looking at why is he allowing all this stuff to happen. And then I got an epiphany that said, I'm going to show them, Carl, what it feels like, what you guys went through to protest. So you got now hundreds and thousands of white Americans who are upset about what's going on, and they're out there protesting. Get a little feel of it. Get a little feel of what it's like to be oppressed by your government. You're getting a little feel of what it's like. Now, we tried to tell y'all, but I think this is what God wants y'all to see, and this might be the uniting factor for us in the future, because the people are starting to mobilize and understand that our best interests are not being taken care of. They're upset with the Democrats because they're not giving a good message. But the Democrats tell me, I want y'all to know, the Democrats are working hard, guys. The attorney generals from the blue states, they're out there, they're fighting these things. All of these, they are mobilized. They have got lawyers all over the place. And the Jasmine Sullivans and the Maxwell Frosts and a lot of other ones are fighting hard to keep this thing right. So I know it looks like they're not doing anything. And I know that they did a little TikTok video. Everybody thought that was cringe. It was from a TikTok follower who has over 7 million followers. And they came down like they were X-Men. I don't know what cartoon references. I'm not much of an animated person or what cartoons and superheroes. But they were coming down and jumping out of the sky like as if they were jumping out of the sky and they were going for battle. I thought it was cute. It wasn't cringy. It was just kind of the ones that they chose. AOC and Jasmine look good, but the rest of them look kind of not into it enough. But here's the deal. They said the Democrats are so stuck up and so educated that we can't get out there but look at the Democrats. Don't let them do that to you. Remember our Democratic convention? It was lit. Y'all do have the power. I think that all Kamala needed, even though I still think this election was compromised, I'm not going to let that go since I read that study. She needed just maybe one more month. This thing would have been wrapped up and put to bed. Because we have to figure out all of these operatives that the Republicans have been doing for 4 years. They have been working on this Project 2025. And guys, they have been mobilizing to get their thing together so that they could sell, notice I didn't say sell the American people and manipulate them into thinking they're the better party. Because it's not truths. None of it is truth. They spent all that time on the transgender issue, which is not really a huge issue, but it resonated with people. It resonated and it worked. It's a shame that those people have to be treated that way, and I hate that they're being used by the Republican Party. It's making it very unsafe for transgender people, and it's not fair that they're doing that. Just like they used the poor people when they were saying they were eating the dogs and eating the cats. It's not right. It's just not right, and I just don't agree with it. So now the people have mobilized and they are marching. Look at this crowd in Washington, D.C. for a march against Elon and what he's been doing with the government workers. And for those of you that are listening, that was a huge crowd. I don't know how many thousands it was, but it was overwhelmingly Anglo-Americans. I'm kind of proud of y'all for marching. We'll join y'all later, probably. But the people are mobilizing. You know what? And if you think that Trump is going to win by keep doing things and the people aren't with him, no. He's huge on numbers. He wants to be popular. He wants people to love him, adore him, revere him. That's his mojo. That's what fuels him. And if he's not getting that, it ain't going to be right for Trump. He can't just go out there and say, well, I can't. American people, if he loses, if those numbers keep going lower and lower of his approval rating, he is going to have a fit. He already probably is. Because, guys, believe it or not, Donald Trump watches TV. He watches The View. He watches all of the media. Yes, he does. And I think he sits up all night, and that's what he looks at. Oh, well. So, I wanted to play this next thing about a lot of the stuff with the tariffs that are going on. All the Republican parties, their god of the Republican of the many years is the great Ronald Reagan, which Ronald Reagan now looks like a Democrat compared to what they are now. But this was Ronald Reagan's view on tariffs. This is recorded video from years back of what he thought about tariffs and how if people try to sell you tariffs, what will happen. And people are all coming back. But that was a different time and done. I don't care. He says tariffs have changed. But this is his view on tariffs. Let's listen in.
You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity.
That's from Ronald Reagan's mouth. That was Ronald Reagan, guys. Yes. So he let you know what we think about tariffs. I don't know why Trump is so into that. So here's my thought. He thinks that America has been ripped off for many, many years. So, okay, why did you come into Washington with that thought? I think Trump has done a lot of business around the world with Trump Towers and his Trump casinos and whatever. And I think that if a country doesn't allow him to do what he wants, he puts him on his list. Y'all know that he's a vengeful person. So where he gets this America's first thing for the tariffs and he thinks he's doing something, I don't know what's driving that. Because Donald Trump has a motive, guys, and it's always self-inflicted motives. It's never one where he really, truly cares about the American people. And you can debate me on that if you want to. But there's something personal about these tariffs that he's going to put the country in turmoil like this. And because he's going up and down and changing his mind, every time he does that, it messes with the stock market. You lose a little bit of your 401k. And y'all think that he hasn't put them in. Well, he's not going to really put. But the fact that he mentions it and says he's going to do it, the market hears him, businesses hear them, and they start to freak out. And then the Dow goes crazy. He got to quit playing with people's lives. If you want tariffs, put the suckers in. Decide what you're going to do. So here is the Canadian reaction to Donald Trump. Tariffs. Canada's mad. They're very sweet people usually. They don't get upset or anything, but a lot of them are very angry with Americans. And the United States and Canada have always had a great relationship, and he just ruined it for all of us. Yep, just ruin it. We're gonna just like when we go to France. People in France cannot stand Americans. They think we're just dumb and stupid. So now here we got Canadians gonna be thinking, and everybody's gonna be hating Americans when we travel because Donald Trump has made it so. So here we go.
BO, the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, will begin removing U.S. products from its store shelves.
Workers at the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, or LCBO, are removing American liquor from their shelves after President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on nearly all imports from Canada and Mexico. Both countries consider the US their largest export market, and the tariffs could severely impact their economies.
Well, it all comes to Donald Trump, right? He needs an excuse to be an and that's what he's doing. Tariffs are bogus, right? I mean, this is just a ridiculous situation that we find ourselves in. We're the best friends of the United States.
I can tell you that Canadians right now are upset, we're angry, we are dismayed. I know of people who have said, I'm not going to ever step foot on that side of the border again. 25% is simply unfathomable. It's unimaginable what it's going to do to our local retailers here, to our manufacturers.
Canada announced retaliatory 25% tariffs on the US, and Mexico's president says she will announce her tariff response on Sunday.
We have tools at our disposal in Canada and in our community to respond to tariffs. We're going to explore all of those options. Canada's a big country.
Since Trump's announcement, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick told Fox Business that he thinks the president will meet the neighboring countries in the middle and, quote, work something out.
All right, so he has since pulled tariffs back off of Canada, but he says that in a month he's going to put them back. I mean, it's messing with the market, guys. Canadians are upset. This is a crazy thing. Every economist, even in his camp, is telling him, "What are you doing? You got to decide. You can't keep doing this to the businesses." But every economist says the American people are going to feel this, guys. All right, let me tell you. I'm going to give you a scenario, and you tell me how you think. This is how tariffs work. All right, so you buy clothes in a retail store, right? If you are a clothier, you buy your clothing wholesale, right? At a price, right? And then when it goes to the store, when you sell it, you mark it up so that it is retail, right? Same thing kind of way tariffs work. So why does Trump so want to stop Canada? I don't understand what is going on with him in Canada. Why would you pick on poor Canada? I don't understand. And it's just like he wants them to become the 51st state. He's been calling Prime Minister Trudeau governor. And now he's talking about changing the borders. And now the next thing he says is, we don't need Canada. What we can do, guys, is that we can actually get our own lumber. You know, Canada supplies us with most of the lumber. So listen to what he says right here.
As such, and yet we don't need their lumber. We have more lumber than they do. We don't need Canada's lumber. So what I'm doing is I'll be signing an executive order freeing up our forests so that we're allowed to take down trees and make a lot of money and then reharvest trees. Also, we're cutting fire divides. A fire divide is a 50-yard to 70-yard swath where the trees can't, it's long enough so trees don't burn forever until you can get them out. And those trees can be sold and made a lot of money with. But we'll be doing that. We don't need trees from Canada. We don't need cars from Canada. We don't need energy from Canada. We don't need anything from Canada. So when we can be self-sustaining, which is in most things. Look, we have more oil and gas than anybody. Our forests are massive forests. We're just not allowed to use them because of the environmental lunatics that stopped us. So I'm going to be freeing that up very shortly so that we don't have to go to other countries to buy lumber. Why should we be buying lumber from other countries, paying tariffs, paying big prices, extraordinary prices, and we have lumber. We have the best lumber. Go ahead.
Well, Karen.
All right, so now he's going to go after our forest. Where you going, Donald Trump? Yellowstone Park first? You're going to go to some park, Big Bend Park in Tech. Where are you going? You're going to get this lumber and you think we don't have, if we're not harvesting lumber now, you can't just go into a forest. It's not ready to start replenishing. We don't have it set up like that. So now he's just going to get lumber from stupid idea. Although we have lumber, but we preserve a lot of our natural areas. So as again, conservatives do not care about environments or climate change or anything like that. So there you go. So let's just destroy our forest. Let's just do that. We don't need Canada. So you see what I'm saying, guys? So something is just very off with him. And I don't know what it is. Is this a real person and how he thinks? He's just kind of stubborn about what he thinks. So now what else has Trump done? He has halted a lot of stuff. And it's starting to get crazy. So a lot of the Elon, he's kind of messed with Elon's power. Let me show you what is happening here. Trump tells the cabinet members that they are in charge of staffing their agencies 1 week after Elon Musk held court before the cameras during President Trump's first cabinet meeting. Many of the Senate-confirmed leaders of government departments and agencies reconvened in the cabinet room today for a different kind of discussion. During a nearly 90-minute meeting, this time without any cameras, Trump delivered a clear message as Musk, one of the most influential members of his administration, sat nearby. The president told his agency heads that while Musk's effort to slash the size and spending of the federal government has his full support, they are the ones, not Musk, who are in charge of staffing at their respective agencies. He tells them to keep all the people you want, everybody that you need, Trump told his cabinet as he recounted to the reporters later in the Oval Office. So basically, he's kind of pulled back. The meeting, which Mr. Trump said would be repeated every 2 weeks, was among the first examples of the president acting to rein in Musk's broad powers. So what is going on here, guys? What is going on here? I think what's going on here is that the people are going back to their town halls. They're hearing things, and they're finding out that Musk is messing up a lot. And he basically put them back in head. So I don't know who the leaks are in these governments, and I bet if Trump ever found out who the leaks are, but somehow it got back to, this was a private meeting. The news media was not in there. They said that it got into a shouting match between Rubio and Elon Musk. But, you know, whoever the source is, of course, they're not going to reveal the source because he's out there these guys are supposed to be running the stuff, but when Trump first came in, he said that all of them had to go through Musk for anything. They're the ones that have to be confirmed, but they have to go through him. They're the ones that have to sit in front of Congress and answer all these questions, but they had to go through him. You see what I mean? So I don't know what caused this here to happen. I don't know. But what I do know is that Musk is known for messing stuff up, guys. Teslas that burn up, rockets that explode. Let's listen to Rachel Maddow on what happened with the dear SpaceX the other night.
Turns out tonight Elon Musk blew something up and disrupted the lives of thousands of Americans. For the second time in less than 2 months, a rocket launched by Elon Musk's company SpaceX exploded and rained potentially dangerous debris down over a wide area of Earth, causing real chaos for planes and airline passengers. This was the most recent test of SpaceX's Starship rocket. Musk says he wants to use Starship to one day take people to Mars. This one lifted off around 6:30 p.m. Eastern from the southern tip of Texas. In a statement, SpaceX said that, quote, during Starship's ascent burn, the vehicle experienced a rapid unscheduled disassembly. Rapid unscheduled disassembly is kind of Elon Musk's specialty these days, especially in a way that really messes with other people through no fault of their own. As debris rained down tonight from Elon Musk's failed rocket, multiple airports in Florida, including Miami and Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach and Orlando, were all brought to a complete halt, ground stop at all of those airports. Even departures as far north as the Philadelphia airport were significantly delayed. Now, as I mentioned, this is the second time this has happened in recent weeks. SpaceX's last test of the Starship rocket suffered a similar fate in mid-January. When that happened, the FAA grounded Starship and has since been overseeing SpaceX's investigation of what went wrong. Even though that investigation is still underway, last week, The FAA nevertheless cleared SpaceX to launch another one, even though the investigation into why the last one blew up wasn't complete. Why'd they clear it? I don't know. But of course, in between those two flights, Donald Trump was sworn in as president. He installed Elon Musk, his top campaign donor, as kind of his co-president. Musk's Doge austerity operation fired hundreds of people at the FAA. And the FAA reportedly decided to suddenly start using Starlink satellite terminals made by Musk's company.
All right, guys. So here we go. Rockets blowing up over the United States, of course. There's debris. I mean, he stalled airports. They had to wait until all that was cleared. This is Musk out there blowing up rockets like they're like what? Like you're shooting at a shooting range or something? Rockets. I mean, these are grants and things he got from the government. So as you can see, this guy just throws stuff against the wall to see what works, and he does that with people's lives. He did it when he came into Twitter. Do y'all remember that when he came into Twitter? He just ruined that really quick. He's not very good at what he does. He's got a lot of money, but he's not too smart, and he doesn't really care about what he has to do to railroad anybody. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. So he's gotten pulled back in by Trump. So something is going on. Something is going on, and we will stay tuned and we will find out what that is. Maybe Trump was just saying stuff to pull. I don't know. I think probably because a lot of lawsuits came out because in his speech or in one of his meetings in the Oval Office, he said that Elon Musk was the head of Doge. And if he's the head of any government agency, he has to be confirmed. So therefore, a lawsuit will be put forth. And I think the attorney's like, gotcha. You said he was the head, which makes him the head of an agency. An agency has to be confirmed by Congress and Senate. And therefore, he's not just an appointed advisor to the president. It's what he's supposed to be. He's working in a different capacity. Y'all get that? So that could be some of the circumstances around why Trump pulled him back. I don't know. But you never know with these guys. They're always they're calculating. They're calculating, guys, all the time. They just are. So, meanwhile, in the DOJ, which is supposed to be separate and an equal entity from the executive branch, dear Pam Bondi, they have taken out all of the Department of Justice civil rights divisions. So I guess if there's a civil rights of anybody that's happened, there will be no Department of Justice intervention because they've basically gotten rid of it. So let's listen to this from MSNBC, and then you make your determination. Here we go.
Joining me now is the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, president of the National Action Network, and my good friend. Rev, there are a lot of people who don't really know the work of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. It's storied. This is a very big deal, stopping its work right now. What's the net effect it's going to have on people?
The net effect is that there will not be a department armed with federal law to protect citizens against hate crime, against crime against women, against crime against LGBTQ. The human rights of all of our citizens were protected by this division, the Civil Rights Division. And let's remember, when you mentioned George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and you could have mentioned Ahmaud Arbery, all of that happened while President Trump was president, and he did nothing. But the Civil Rights Division under Biden came in and prosecuted the police in George Floyd, even though they had faced state charges and state convictions, and in Ahmaud Arbery. And they had consent decrees with those police departments. With all of that removed, Trump is now trying to have a society where there would be no redress for the George Floyds, no redress for the Minneapolis police departments, as well as the departments that they put under the Biden administration. So it is to really undo. He's already tried to undo with dealing with the question of suspending DEI. Now we're dealing with him disarming us from even having the law properly investigate civil rights crimes.
So one of the reasons that the Civil Rights Division stepped in the cases that you mentioned is that states sometimes don't have the power. The crime doesn't meet some sort of state standard. And what the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice says is that this crime or this alleged activity violated someone's civil rights, and they go in with federal protection. So sometimes it's the lawsuit of last resort.
It's not only the law, the feds have the resources that some of the states don't have. And it's different federal law. But let's not forget, when he first ran, Charlottesville happened. And you had people marching down the street saying Jews will not replace us. And the Civil Rights Division looks at that. We had the first hate crime summit in the White House with Joe Biden as president, Kamala Harris as vice president, with Jonathan Greenblatt of the American Anti-Defamation League and Mark Morial and myself sharing it. So he'll send a signal in 3 days, that I'm suspending DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm going to shut down the Civil Rights Division. He hasn't even been the president a week and has declared war on the human and civil rights of blacks, of Jews, of gays, LGBTQ, trans. He's declared outright war.
I want to talk about consent decrees. Again, a word that a lot of people don't know in between times that we hear of these police abuses, but it's the federal government basically saying, we're going to we've examined your police department or your city. You have a pervasive pattern of discriminatory or bad behavior, and we're going to monitor you and check in on you until you improve. Donald Trump is saying that goes away.
And here's the same guy that claims that the Democrats weaponized the system against him, but he will not have them look at whether or not they're dealing fairly with whole groups of communities, whole groups of people based on who they are. So you can deal with the individual downside, but you can't deal with what could collectively been something that would harm the rights of citizens. This is, I can't think in my lifetime a darker period in terms of dealing with the government not being accountable to protecting the citizens.
You're talking about DEI. Donald Trump has revoked a civil rights rule that prevents workplace discrimination that was enacted by Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965. Quote, it forbade federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. It granted the Labor Department the power to enforce its provisions. Obviously, some of that has evolved because in 1965 we weren't covering all that stuff. But this was kept in place by Nixon, by Ford, by Reagan, by Bush 41, by Bush 43, all the Democrats included, and for some reason in Donald Trump's first term. But now this idea of being anti-workplace discrimination is categorized as DEI, and it's gone.
It's gone. And you have to ask yourself, what is the motive? If Republican and Democratic presidents have maintained this, let's remember, affirmative action started under Richard Nixon, a Republican. His Deputy Secretary of Labor, Arthur Fletcher, wrote it. So what is so atrocious to Donald Trump that nobody before him saw? We certainly can't say the data says that the problems of racial discrimination at the workplace is something that warrants us to just go and do something else, that all of that is resolved. So he's playing to a race-based crowd. He's trying to, in many ways, play this us against them, which is why we've said in National Action Network and other groups that we've got to go after the private sector that wants to end DEI and say those that want to take that side, you don't want diversity, inclusion, and equity, then you should have a diverse consumer base. And we're going to, in 90 days, start targeting some of these companies to say, fine, you can go with Trump, but you will not have our consumer dollar. How did Martin Luther King start? He started by boycotting the Montgomery bus boycott. So sometimes when you won't hear our appeal, you will hear our dollars.
And the other side of that.
The other way.
All right. So did y'all hear that? So anything that reeks or smells of anything that has DEI, they just strip it. I mean, that's been there since LBJ. And it's an executive order. And remember, I told you when executive orders, when another president comes in, if the executive order, it's not a law, it's an executive order, but they can stay in effect until somebody comes along and revokes it. So since 1960, that thing has been there, and he comes and takes it away. We don't need this anymore. So there is no federal protection against hate crimes or discrimination against workers. He just got rid of stuff. There's no federal mandate on that at all. I mean, Congress can come along and write laws, but it has to be passed. That's the thing about executive orders, because there are a lot of executive orders that are still there, and they're just there because every president says this is good, leave it, you know. But to me, when it's an executive order that's good, it needs to be codified and sent to Congress so that we don't have a situation where he can roll back. I mean, what if that had been like slavery was an executive order? We'd be up a creek, right? Because he can come in there and say, I think they need to go back. Get rid of it. That's the way it works. Executive orders. So it's within his right to do it, and he did it. And there we have it. So now, like Reverend Sharpton said, we're going to get y'all in the pocketbook now because you just messed with us here. So, as all of this is going on, MAGA world is still going crazy. So I want you to listen to this lady. She was just very colorful, and she just tells it like it is against her MAGA brothers and sisters. And when you first look at her, you think she'd be MAGA, but she's not. And I love her. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
People in my hometown are so indoctrinated by the Trump bullshit that you can't speak any kind of logic to them. None. None. We have been isolated from the rest of the world. Europe has turned their backs on us. I don't blame them. You can't trust the United States. You can't trust our president. You can't trust Elon Musk. They are buddying up with Putin for whatever reason, because he owes him, because they think they're going to get more power, because they want to be part of taking over the world. Who knows? But the fact is, the people that were our allies no longer are. So we're on our own. And I don't think you understand the gravity of that situation. I know you don't. Because all you're concerned with right now is that Zelensky didn't wear a suit in the Oval Office. Because you were fed that. And whatever you're fed, you spew back out. Lack of education. That doesn't mean that you don't have your high school diploma. It doesn't mean you might not even have a little college under your belt. But the fact is you have no critical thinking skills. You can't sit back and look at what is happening in the world right now. And you believe him over everybody in the world, literally. The whole world is showing what we are under right now, this regime. But you believe Trump. You believe Elon because you're indoctrinated. I don't trust any of you fuckers anymore.
Sorry about the profanity. I didn't know she said that at the end. Oh my God. So, you know, people are starting to wake up, guys. They're starting to wake up. Except for this county. This is one of the CNN, she's one of the field reporters, and she always goes, during the election, she went from town talking to people. So she was in this particular town. It's one of the most red counties in Georgia. I think it voted 90% for Trump. And she wanted to check in and see with them, because she went to them before the election. She wanted to check in to see how they were doing after. And I want you to hear what it is. This is how ingrained this stuff is. It's like the same little one guy that dissent is the same one, but the rest of them, they're not having it. They don't care what he's doing. They're going to have to take care. He's going to do. But here you go, guys. I'm not making fun. I just like to talk Southern because I am Southern. All right. So here we go in MAGA County in Georgia. I don't know. I call it MAGA County. I don't know what county it is, but maybe the reporter will tell us here. Here we go.
Smart and immoral. You can be smart and make bad decisions.
You are 100% right about that. There's no doubt about that. It does not give me pause. I'm 100% Team Musk.
Josh Eben Kirkland is one of the people we spoke to at a hog show in Nahunta, Georgia. We first came to Brantley County right before the election because it was the most pro-Trump county in a swing state in 2020. People had had a strong emotional connection to President Trump, and they thought Trump was for them instead of the elites. So we wanted to see what they made of billionaire Elon Musk.
There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about Musk, and he's a brilliant man himself. I think a lot of people are scared that the two of them have teamed up.
Last time we were here, Kathy Hendricks sold Trump merch in a corner of her boutique.
I sold out of everything. I sold out of all my Trump stuff. I have sold the daddy's home.
Why do people like that, calling Trump daddy?
There is a security in daddy. Mama is the one that runs everything. Mama's the one that does everything, but there is a security in daddy. When daddy wraps his arms around you, you feel like the whole world is just, you're safe and everything's going to be okay.
And that's the way they mean it?
And that's the way they mean it.
Because, you know, on the internet at least, sometimes it has like a sexual meaning.
Oh, Lord.
So what do you think of the job he's done so far?
It's like Christmas morning every single day.
Hendricks introduced us to Candace Taylor, who declared she's running for Congress that very day on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast.
I wanted to announce with you are loyal to President Trump. God anoints people. He's anointed President Trump. So if Elon Musk wants to cut trillions of dollars out of this budget, and if my family has to tighten our belt and not go on vacation because of it, I'm down with that.
So you welcome some personal financial hardship if you think in the long run it will help.
Yeah, I've already experienced it.
Under Biden, with inflation, I mean, were you happy to pay the higher prices, or did you think that was a failing of his presidency?
It was a tremendous failing.
All right, how long are you willing to wait for the economic changes you're hoping to see, for the prices to come down?
Oh, I'm good if President Trump wants to run in 2028.
In 2022, Taylor ran in the Republican primary for governor with a Jesus Guns Baby slogan and lost. But why run for Congress if some billionaire can just undo whatever budget you passed, whatever laws you passed?
Oh, he's not undoing everything. He's dealing with stuff that's frivolous.
Most people we spoke to were enthusiastic about Musk. We did meet 3 people who had some concerns about the firing of federal workers, but the only one who wanted to say so on camera was Corbett Wilson, one of the rare Trump skeptics we found last time we visited. Prices of groceries, egg prices haven't gone down since Trump took office.
Give him a little bit of time. Will you come back in a year or 2 years? Let's look at the halfway point, because we all know everything takes time.
Well, he promised it on the first day.
He promises to
and
take
anybody
steps.
that believed that's crazy.
He also said that it would probably be a little more painful to start with, but it would get better. We got to give
Everybody's waiting on that.
Well,
you talking about contractors? Elon's a contractor too. Who looks into him?
There needs to be somebody.
Nobody questions his bills.
Do you trust Elon Musk?
Absolutely.
He's a government contractor. He's got business interests, whether in defense, internet, that kind of thing. He's also admitted to drug use. He smoked pot on the Joe Rogan show. Do you trust him as like a stable, rational, and reasonable person to be doing this job?
Yes.
Hey, he's a Republican. You ain't gonna talk him out of that.
There's potheads all over this country. Y'all sitting here trying to bash one man for what, 99% of this country, Republican or Democrat. Corbett, this whole dadgum town smokes pot. You're part of the Democrat Party in my book.
The conversation devolved quickly. We had not anticipated the emotional connection that he already felt with Musk.
This
He
is
did it
over
on
with.
TV.
He sat on TV and smoked pot.
Yes, do you
Well,
want
I
me to
haven't. I
pull
don't
up the
care.
video?
I'm saying it don't matter. But that makes him unqualified to do a job.
Well, I'm just saying, does it...
Yeah, I mean,
Does the
she's
question
coming
is-
in here with ignorant arguments. She
Does
ain't
it-
talking
Does
facts.
it raise any questions
You
about his
I can prove
judgment?
you a Democrat by the level of ignorance that you portray.
Let's
We
just
listen to
show
that
it.
all the time. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, please drain the swamp. While you there, get the job done. Please.
They'll probably go down the drain with it.
Boy, that was interesting. Wasn't that interesting? That was my boy Corbett. He's like the lone wolf in that town. He was like, he's trying to make them all wake up. He's telling them, but they just don't get it. I mean, you have reasonable people amongst those, but they are in the minority in these counties, guys. Wow, that was kind of scary, but real. That's real. Those are real people. So, and that's our real people. I'm not making fun of them by no means. I'm just saying that's just the way it is. But the fact that they're being manipulated, to me, is what really makes me hurt, because they're not getting told the truth. If they were being told the truth, then maybe things would change. But sometimes the truth is okay with them. And that's okay too. So there you go. So now the last part of the thing we're going to dedicate to Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom has decided to start a podcast, guys. He decided to start a podcast. And it's been ruffling a lot of Democrats' wings and feathers, because he took a stance on transgender as to where he stands. And he kind of broke away from the Democratic Party on transgender athletes or whatever. And he did it with the nature of his podcast is that he wants to bring on people from the very extreme right of him and have conversations. It's kind of ingenious, because he's really divulging some of their secrets, and they're so gullible. They're telling them, which I think is kind of interesting. But the fact that he wants to do that, and then they think, and I know that he wants to run for president. I don't know, Gavin, your name's come up so many times. You'd be a great president. But what I don't want you to do, and I'm thinking he's getting ready to move more toward the center so that you can reach, because in order to reach the MAGA people, you got to. But I am hoping that our independent people will be a little bit more sophisticated than they are. We're not going to get MAGA red over here. We're just not. We're not going to get those. But you got to go for the independents. So in order to do that, a lot of the Democratic candidates have to move to the center. And what the center means, guys, is appeal to more white folks. I'll put it in that chain. Moving to the center means you need to appeal to more white people. That's what it means. Okay? That's just what it means. Because the more left you go, the more you won't get the center. So you need to do issues that appeal to white people. That's what it means. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what it really means. Okay? So I want you to listen to last year during the election, Newsom started the ad for democracy. And I want to listen to his starting ad. And this is kind of setting him up for the presidency, And I think he's on his way there. But let's listen to what he said here. He's kind of changing a little course because the election happened and things didn't go the way we thought they were going to go. And I don't care what you said. Kamala did an excellent job, and we did a fired up job in how many ever weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was, whatever many months it was. She did an excellent job. And I tell you what, if they hadn't cheated, which I'm going to keep saying that because something was compromised by the Russians, and I believe that now that I've seen the data, and we had just maybe a month more, we could have overshadowed all of that. We could have. I think that we could have. So Kamala, I think you may have been the first woman president elected. You may have been. But I believe Russian operatives got in there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, guys. Don't get started. Listen to my podcast and listen to the study of what some experts found in the voting. In the voting pattern, there is an anomaly that they have found. So, just want to stress that again. So let's listen to Newsom's ad for democracy.
Let's be direct. We can't solve a problem without first identifying it. And the problem in our country right now? Authoritarian leaders who are so hell-bent on gaining power and keeping it by whatever means necessary that they're directly attacking our freedoms in state after state. That's why I'm launching the Campaign for Democracy. We're going on the road to take the fight to states where freedom is most under attack, where Republican leaders ban books, criminalize doctors, fire teachers, intimidate librarians, kidnap migrants, target trans kids, stoke racism, condone anti-Semitism, force the victims of rape and incest to carry their attacker's baby, where they ignore the will of the people. They make it harder to vote and easier to buy assault weapons. They fan the flames of culture wars to distract from the fact that blue states have lower murder rates, better healthcare outcomes, and higher GDPs. We're going to these states and investing in people and organizations where they're fighting back. We know we have a big battle coming, which is why we'll help lead the fight to make sure we elect leaders in 2024 who believe in democracy. Our country is facing an existential battle for who we are and who we're willing to become. It's not an exaggeration. That's the truth. What's happening in those red states? It's not who we are. It's un-American. It's undemocratic. And all it takes to fight back is a willingness to stand toe to toe and say enough. That's what the campaign for democracy is all about. We're doing this because, well, the future isn't just something that happens to us. It's something we can create. So join the movement. Join us at campaignfordemocracy.com.
All right, so that was his campaign now. I mean, that's very left talking, right? So an ad like that you probably won't see again in the Democratic Party after we got shellacked by Donald Trump and his minions, because it's too left-centered. So that's not going to work to win for president, because you're gonna alienate everybody to the right with a message like that, because they don't believe in anything humane. Bottom line. So now we're going to just switch forward, and when he made the statement that about transgender, he said that he did not think it was fair. He didn't think it was fair. He wanted things to be fair. He didn't really say anything negative against transgender. He says, I believe in fairness was the word that he used. But it's really kind of a breakaway from what Democrats believe in on the whole deal. And I mean, I have some thoughts about it too. I mean, a trans woman versus a trans man, there's different things. A trans woman is probably not going to try to play. A trans man is probably not going to play sports with real men. Although we have females in some states that play on football teams. So we allow that because females wanted it. And then when you turn it the other way, when you have a trans woman, and that's a woman that has transitioned from a man to a woman. And I don't know. I mean, they take hormones that gives them more estrogen, and they take shots and things like that to help them to transition. And it does change a lot of their body makeup. They lose a lot of muscle. It's just the way it is. They turn into women. So they really do turn into women. And so you have to really think about that. So I don't know what's fair, what's not fair, but it's not enough of them in the country to be having this discussion. It's just a scare tactic. It's just a scare tactic on all. But let's listen to what David Axelrod had to say about Newsom and his newfound center thinking or reaching out to the right kind of thing. And then we're going to play you one of the scenes from his podcast. Here we go.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is splitting from his own party tonight on the issue of transgender athletes in women's sports. On the first episode of his new podcast, Governor Newsom, who is potentially considering a run for the White House in 2028, judge for yourself when you hear this, spoke about this issue with the conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And Governor Newsom said Republicans were able to effectively weaponize this issue against his party.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness. So I revere sports. And so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
My Democratic sources are David Axelrod and Karen Finney. I believe at that part, Charlie Kirk was saying they weren't weaponizing it, they were just highlighting it. What did you make of what Governor Newsom had to say?
Well, I think I made of it what most people make of it, which is he read the play. I mean, he pretty much said it. He was impressed by how they weaponized the issue. Here's my advice. If I were giving the governor advice, I'd say, don't be so overt. that people can see the wheels turning. The obvious question would be, well, you've been governor of California for 6 years. You were lieutenant governor for many years before that. When did you have this epiphany? You know, and the answer is when he found that the Republicans could weaponize the issue.
You know, the thing that bothered me about the whole incident was it was such an obvious gimmick, right? He needed some headlines to say, you know, Newsom breaks with the left, right? And what does he do? He picks all the people that you could pick to try to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody who's coming from a different perspective than me. It was such a gimmick. And to David's point, I mean, it's like the thirstiness is dripping off of him. And it's like, just stop it. It's gross. And, you know, he's using the left, basically. And these are the people who have had his back for a very long time. When they tried to recall him, actually. And I just don't think people are not going to take too kindly to it.
All right, so that was David Axelrod, former Obama campaign staffer leader, and that's what they're thinking about it. So Charlie Kirk is whom he has actually reached out in his first podcast. Charlie Kirk, he's a right podcaster that heavily influenced this election with young people. He visited colleges and everything, so he got a lot of the young men. Yes, the podcast bros, they were calling them. And let me just read about who Charlie Kirk is, and then we'll go into the interview, just a portion of the interview, and let you hear his interaction with the governor. So Charlie Kirk is a prominent conservative political activist, author, and media personality born on August 14, 1993, blah, 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 in Arlington Heights, Illinois. He co-founded the Turning Point USA in 2012 with Bill Montgomery. TPUSA is a conservative student organization that has grown significantly under Kirk's leadership with initiatives like the Professor Watch List and School Board Watch List. So Kirk, he hosts the Charlie Kirk Show, a conservative talk radio show that airs on the Salem Radio Network. His show is also known for its dynamic and impactful content, making him a significant figure in conservative radio. Beyond his radio show, Kirk is also a prominent figure on social media and frequently appears on college campuses to engage with young political activists. Kirk has publicly promoted conservative and Trump and aligned causes and has been a vocal critic of the COVID-19 response, critical race theory, and scientific consensus on climate change. His influence extends beyond traditional media, and he continues to engage and mobilize young conservatives through various platforms and events. So this guy's pretty powerful on that front. And he actually talks to Trump. He says at least twice a week, and basically gives him ideas. And so a lot of the things that have changed up, I think this guy may have been some influence with Trump on the tariffs and whatever. So I want you to listen to the Newsom Kirk. I pulled this snippet from it's a long podcast. The first one, you can go to Gavin Newsom's podcast and you can listen to wherever you listen to your podcast, and you can listen to it. But it was quite interesting. I listened to the whole thing. I woke up in the morning and I thought I was just going to listen to a little bit of it, but it was quite interesting because this guy's giving all the little secrets. But here's the one thing that I want you guys to know by listening to this. It kind of validates the fact that conservatives don't care about victims. All they care about the money. The reason why DEI became an issue to them is when they become a financial impact with it. And it had nothing to do about the people. It's called, when there is any kind of money coming out of their pockets, then they're upset. And that's conservative thinking. They could care less about victims or what's happening to people, starving Africans, sending money to every Asia, whatever. They don't care. It's all about their pockets. And one of my followers, I don't know if they follow me or not, are trollers, who's always in my comments, said that's not true. That he works with his church and does stuff with missionaries and whatever. I said, and they've partnered with the federal government. So what is so wrong with the federal government doing it? Crickets, no cricket. So here is that exchange, and it behooves you to listen to the entire podcast of Gavin Newsom because he's on to something. But it is a little cringy that he is kind of trying to figure out how to get to the center. It's very obvious, but anyway, I like him, and I think he'd be a great president. But everybody thinks they have to coddle the right to win. I don't think so. I think there's enough of us out there that do the right thing. We just got to get them to vote. They just don't vote. That's the challenge. But we don't have to mess with MAGA red. Let them be MAGA red all they want. Here we go. All right, so that's just a little bit of it, guys. It's probably about an hour 50. I don't know. It's a long podcast, but it's very much worth listening to. And you should check it out. That podcast with Gavin Newsom and Charlie Kirk. I got to find out what Prop 16 is that he said that didn't win. But the thing about it is, guys, that as I end this podcast today, what the whole Republican machine is doing is manipulative to me. They think that they're providing the people that are with the party all of these conduits of justice and whatever, but they're really just feeding them what they want them to know. You know what I mean? Democrats don't work that way. Democrats work in different ways. I mean, we try to fix the problems. We're trying to help the people. And sometimes we may be too bleeding heart for our party and whatever, and Democrats are not a monolith. We have a big enough tent that we can do all these things. Republicans don't have that. Their one thing is right now is making sure that the white fragility is saved. And that poor lady who wrote that book is really good. You should read it. And, and the fact of the matter that all this is because of George Floyd. And people just woke up and we were together as people and we decided as people that it's not okay for you to sit on somebody's neck and kill them while the camera is going. It's not okay if someone is screaming, "I can't breathe," and calling their mom and everything is okay. It's not okay that even after he stopped speaking, moving, that you continue to stay on the neck of the dead person who's now dead. And we came together on that, America, as an issue. And out of it came some love. Some love. Out of it came some things. But now, everybody's all back to their corners. And all that's over with. Oh, yeah, and there is even one podcaster, I can think of his name. Which one is it? I can't think of his name. That is calling for Derek Chauvin to be pardoned. Yeah, that's where we are right now. Derek Chauvin is the one that did all of that to George Floyd. Was on the neck, was guilty in the States. They can't really do much about it, but he pled guilty to, he was charged with a federal and a state crime. The state crime he's serving 20 years. He's got to serve that because the federal does not supersede a state trial. But Trump can ceremoniously pardon his federal trial because he pled guilty to that. He pled guilty himself to the federal trial. He had remorse. So there's a group of I think it's Charlie O'Brien, that might be the podcaster, but there's a group of podcasters that are trying to get that pardon by Trump. Now, Trump, dear President Trump, if you want to see some unrest in this country, then do that. That's just a slap in the black people's face. And that just shows that you guys are not about nothing. And you're wrong for doing that. I pray that never happens. But it's out there. I didn't want to cover that too much because I just don't want to put too much press on that because I just don't want that to happen, guys. But it could. It wouldn't do anything. The man still had to serve his 20 years. But ceremoniously, Trump would do it. it, just to show it'd be a dog whistle to his base. And that just shows that you guys are not about nothing. And you're wrong for doing that. I pray that never happens. But it's out there. I didn't want to cover that too much because I just don't want to put too much press on that because I just don't want that to happen, guys. But it could. It wouldn't do anything. The man still had to serve his 20 years. But ceremoniously, Trump would do it just to show it'd be a dog whistle to his base. that this base doesn't think that the guy should have gotten that because George Floyd was drunk and da and all this. So there's a lot of people that agree that he should have just died like he died. It was okay. Yeah, there is, believe it or not. So I know this was a very long podcast today, guys, but I had a lot to cover. There's a lot that went on this week. I won't make them this long again because there was a lot of work putting it together. But I want to make sure that you hear the truth. Challenge me on anything that I say. If I say anything that's wrong, challenge me. Let's have a talk about it. I want to get things right. And I want the American people to hear me. I want you to hear me. If someone hears me that I say and I find some things that's going to help somebody, then that's the goal right there. But the main goal, guys, is we got to figure this thing out as people. It's how we're going to live together. Because right now we're going backwards. And I ain't liking that. I'm sorry. I'm not liking that. None of us are. So, there you go. So I hope you had a wonderful day with me today. And check me out on my next episode. All of you podcasters, you should check out the new app out that I'm using. It's called Podpage, where you can set up your own web page. Podpage. I have that link on my linked tree if you want to check it out. But yes, this is a great app. But anyway, everybody have a wonderful day. And until the next episode, this has been Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.